In this video, we're going to uncover an unbelievable story of how a group of childhood friends without any prior experience with a criminal lifestyle managed to steal almost $20 million in cash without leaving any traces behind and without a single gunshot in just under 30 minutes, including themselves in a list of the greatest cash heisters in U.S. history. The story begins in California, Los Angeles, 1997, with a man named Alan Pace, who worked at one of the Dunbar armored facilities as a regional safety inspector. The Dunbar company specialized in armored car services, and the LA facility was a major depot for these vehicles. As such, a great deal of cash was stored in the facility, most of it intended for ATMs in the Los Angeles area. Such places are where the banks and their extensions store and get their money from. Regarding Alan himself, not much is known about his past. The documents are either lost or unavailable. The only details that could be elucidated are that he grew up in a black community in the suburbs of California. His family wasn't rich, but like many others, he was struggling financially because of the unstable conditions in the country and politics. He grew up as a normal, average child, without any criminal record or experience in dangerous activities. This bit of his personal history makes the story so much more intriguing, how a person with no previous hints of any criminal tendencies can suddenly become one of the most recognizable robbers and heisters in U.S. history. Unfortunately, the ultimate reason remains to be uncovered by Alan himself, although we could only speculate on this question. Simple human greed, desire for adventure, and financial independence in our tough times are more than enough reasons to attempt committing such crimes, which is certainly possible in his case. Up until the point of the robbery, he was a law-abiding citizen who for many years worked in a trusted position, as mentioned before, as a security inspector. His background in security was a crucial component of his realization of the truly perfect place he was working in. Such facilities, like Dunbar Depot, were places that stored hundreds of millions of dollars at any given day, but compared with any banks, which are usually very accessible, publicly available, and protected much more strictly, such depots are not publicly available, with only trusted workers allowed in, and therefore provided with much less overall security. It was a perfect storm, which meant it was only a matter of time until he would begin to think about all this unprotected and accessible to him money and his possible happy future, with no struggles or financial problems. This was the beginning of his path to the criminal history of the world. Although there was technically enough security to deter most of the possible robbers, Alan was in a perfect position. He wasn't just anybody, but someone who knew all the insides and outsides of the place, with spotless reputation, connections, and access to virtually every part of the building. Considering the nature of the facility, no one else would be able to do the job because of the lack of access to the information about all the details and subtleties of the depot. He decided to put his fortunate circumstances to use. First, he needed to conduct a thorough observation of every important part in the facility, such as surveillance, the schedule of workers and their duties, all the blind spots, and so on. During his several-year full-time work there, he didn't waste a single minute of time and was observing everything. As a result, he quickly began noticing some cracks in the security system, which he will definitely exploit in the future. The Dunbar facility was a relatively small, one-story building with an automated alarm system, surveillance cameras throughout the perimeter, several offices with workers inside, as well as armed guards at several positions. The vault with the money was protected by the bulletproof walls around it and an 18-inch thick metal door of the vault itself. He was working inside, connecting with workers, all while being completely trusted by everyone. Perfect. During his work there, he even started dating one of the other security officers, Tamiko Carnes, who was working in the camera surveillance office and who unintentionally allowed him inside to learn all about how the surveillance system works everywhere in the area. Several pieces of the puzzle have been successfully collected. Among his job duties, he was responsible for inspection and maintenance of the trucks and the storage facility itself, which meant no one would suspect anything wrong with his activities. He even managed to bring a camera and was pretending that he was doing a security check to keep in memory where everything should be. He photographed the interior halls, rooms, and even unsuspecting coworkers while working. He also tried to take pictures right where the cameras were, but so that it would look as innocent as possible, with cameras being at the edge of the pictures and so on. His trusted status allowed him to collect an enormous amount of data, the exact times and schedules of every work done inside and outside the building, the change of every shift, the exact timing and locations of every camera. and even particular habits and other specific behaviors of each one of his colleagues, their movements at precise times of the day, like who ate lunch at what time, or was preparing to leave ahead of time, who had weapons or security alarm buttons, and so on. With this tremendous database, he was certain that the heist of his dreams was not only possible but extremely probable. The only thing that's left is to find suitable accomplices whom he could trust with his life and form a detailed plan of action to successfully and flawlessly execute one of the most infamous heists in U.S. crime history. After collecting all of the necessary data, he needed to find trustworthy and reliable associates to form a group and create as well as rehearse a detailed and calculated plan of action to ensure the success of the heist, their alibis, and their complete inconspicuousness afterwards. During this time, his girlfriend in the camera department suddenly got fired, as well as some other co-workers. This began to stress him out because he suspected he might have been next. He quickly got to work. He didn't think for very long whom he could involve. First in the group was his best childhood friend, who also had a background in security work, Eugene Hill. After they talked for a bit, they decided to collect their other mutual childhood friends, since they knew each other very well and had a strong bond of trust, so they did. Alan and Eugene met with several other of their friends in the park and began discussing the deal. Alan's detailed descriptions and deep knowledge of the place and workers really impressed some of the people there, who immediately agreed to participate. Two more of their friends are in, Freddie McCrary and Terry Brown. Now, he already had 3 trusted members of the crew, but he needed several more to be on the lookout, help with the guards, and also drive their vehicle. His friends had the people who could be interested and reliable. Those were Thomas Johnson, their good friend who also had worked in security, and Eric Boyd. The team has been formed, consisting of 7 highly reliable and trustworthy members. Now the only thing left is the plan. Fortunately, with his extensive information and experience base, he was ready to lay out the plan. They would need to rent a U-Haul truck and drive through the highway to the depot, and also have another car just several blocks away. They would come and enter in using his keys, and knowing the positions of all the workers and surveillance cameras, they would be able to avoid every obstacle. He knew that the officer in the camera department, for example, always went on a dinner break at a certain time, so they would definitely utilize this info for their benefit. Right before the vault with the money, there was a dispatcher officer who had one of the alarm buttons, so they would need to take hold of him before he could send the signal. They would subdue all the workers, one by one throughout the building, depending on their location and importance, then open the vault with the right combination, take the money into the truck and grab all the video camera and other evidence with them, so no one would be able to track them down. Also, they would need to ensure their airtight alibis. They would go to a nearby party, connect, and get seen by a lot of people so that they would vouch for them, and then, at night, one by one slip out inconspicuously and return back after the job was done, as if they never left at all. The plan seemed perfect. Now they would only need to rehearse all the information, time out their moves to avoid all the cameras, and successfully restrain each worker, take the money, and leave without any incriminating evidence left. All good, when suddenly Alan gets a phone call from his boss. He has been fired. He was devastated because the plan depended on him having his keys to the building. Now they didn't have a lot of time left. He called Eugene and asked everyone to prepare for the action on Friday, September 12th, 1997. On Friday evening, September 12th, they're at the party as planned. By 11 o'clock, one by one they come out of the building. 4 of them get in the U-Haul truck and 2 in another car. Now they are ready to drive to the facility. By Alan's signal, they come out on time, and now they need to go in such a way to avoid all the cameras. By timing out the movement of the cameras, they sneak in unnoticed, and now they are inside. The first step of the plan depends on the dispatch officer being in the exact place and at the exact time as Alan expected. They come from behind, restrain the officer, tie up with duct tape, and take away his gun and keys to the vault area. One done, they go in room by room and apprehend each employee inside while looking through the indoor windows to see if there are any surprises. So far, so good. Everything is according to plan. But while apprehending a female officer, they pushed her too hard and injured her shoulder. When she began to scream from pain, Alan automatically said to her, "Don't worry, baby. Keep this in mind while we proceed forward." Once everyone was accounted for, They went to the vault and notified Eric Boyd, who was the driver of the U-Haul, to come into the loading area to start packing the bags of cash into the truck. They take blocks of cash wrapped in the plastic shrink wrap and put them inside black garbage bags, which they load into the bins and wheel into the truck. Well, they were in the race against time, and so they took as much money and as fast as they could. When they finished collecting the money, they took all the video camera recordings from the guard room and made a clean escape from the Dunbar facility. The only problem was, when the truck headed to the building, a plastic piece of taillight broke off and fell on the ground, which they didn't notice. So after they escaped from the facility, they unloaded the cash and equipment in Eugene's apartment and changed to their normal clothes, after which they returned to their rock-solid alibis, the party, one by one, unnoticed, as if they'd been there all this time. The whole operation took about 30 to 60 minutes. They were excited by the result. Everything went perfect. Now they had almost $20 million on their hands and were free to live their lives with no problems. But was their job as perfect as they thought? And will the authorities be able to find them, with no apparent mistakes or any evidence left behind? Let's find out in the next and last chapter. They felt confident and happy, thinking that now they would split the money equally and go on their own paths. But very soon after they left, the workers freed themselves and immediately called the authorities. Later, the FBI was additionally notified about the robbery. Thus, the official investigation has begun. The authorities searched through the building and the surrounding area, checked the camera recordings, possible witnesses, and so on, but found nothing. The only thing discovered was a plastic piece of the taillight from an unknown car, which didn't match any of the Dunbar vehicles. The job was so quick, clean, and flawless that the authorities started to suspect an inside job right away. The criminals had to have a substantial knowledge base about so many moving parts, schedules, cameras, inside structures, and more, that it couldn't have been any random person. They checked the vault, counted the money, and there it was. $18.9 million, gone without a trace. The only option left is to collect all 130 current and several recently fired Dunbar employees for the lie detector test. The result, only 2 failed: Alan Pace and his girlfriend, Tamiko Carnes. One of the 2 pieces of evidence available was the testimony of one of the female officers. Now, remember the interaction between Alan and an injured female officer in the facility. She recognized his voice when he said, "Don't worry, baby." This was clearly a mistake on his part, a completely unexpected turn of events. The Dunbar owners were expecting Alan's immediate arrest, based on the evidence available. But the investigation couldn't proceed with prosecution and make a case, because there was no actual, physical evidence that would incriminate Alan as being the perpetrator. With the presumption of innocence, he's innocent until proven guilty, Alan has been let go, for now. The investigation teams desperately tried to find something. Months went by and still, nothing. A year after the robbery, the authorities issued a reward of $250,000 for anyone who could assist with the information about the robbery. Another year has gone by, and the group of friends thought that they have definitely gotten away with it. They agreed to spend the money wisely, in small quantities without any suspicious gestures, to avoid attracting any attention, since the governmental authorities frequently checked their activities for any suspicious moves. Some of them even started small businesses and slowly began creating profit to disguise their money with a veneer of legality. Their lives continued as if nothing had transpired when, after all this time, this happened. It seems one of the team members got too confident and relaxed and made one of the stupidest mistakes possible. It was none else than Eugene Hill. He decided to invest $100,000 of his money into land ownership and brought the money to the realtor. But the money was still wrapped in the original paper straps indicating the bank of origin. The realtor instantly suspected that something was off, but still proceeded with the deal to not draw Eugene's attention or show any signs of concern. Well, the deal was made, and the realtor checked the info on the money and immediately saw the FBI's reward of $250,000 for assistance in the Dunbar case and contacted the authorities. The investigation teams were able to analyze the straps and confirm their origin in the Dunbar facility with the date of the robbery. By this time, the FBI found out that the piece of the taillight from the crime scene was specific to U-Haul trucks, and now they checked Eugene in the records of those renting the trucks. Now they had him in. He was the weakest link. After his apprehension and interrogation by the authorities, he cracked down and told everything, admitting his involvement and disclosing every other member and their roles in the robbery. Thus, after almost 3 years of perfect hiding, the group and each of its members were exposed and arrested. As the mastermind behind the heist, Alan Pace received a 24-year-long sentence, while his accomplices got half of that, only 12 years each. Thus, the historical heist of the century that could have been left forever unsolved was mistakenly uncovered and exposed by one's inattentiveness, greed, and overconfidence. The only interesting fact left is that the authorities managed to retrieve only about half of the money, which means that after the group is released, they might still be rich after all. This remains to be uncovered in the future. This was a fascinatingly twisted and full of surprises story about one of the biggest and most famous cash heists in America, and how even seemingly perfect operations could still get exposed and fail because of someone's basic mistake. If you've enjoyed watching this video, don't forget to support the channel by liking and subscribing. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. See you in the next one.